Okay, so in the last lecture, I talked about carbon and why it was life's central molecule. I also gave you a brief introduction to the four biomolecules, and I discussed specifically carbohydrates. In this lecture, we're going to continue our discussion by talking about lipids. Okay, here's this cute little otter. Lipids are what's called hydrophobic. Hydro meaning water again, and phobic meaning afraid of or not liking. So the lipids, the first characteristic that you can use to identify them is they're not going to dissolve easily in water. Okay, which is why this otter has covered his fur with lipids. Okay, lipids are also called fats. So here are a bunch of lipids, a bunch of pictures of lipids, and you can see they have these long chains of carbons. So whenever you see a long chain of carbons like this that doesn't really involve nitrogen, you're going to be looking at a lipid. So notice here is a steroid, and it's in a bunch of rings. And so before I told you, if you see it in my class and it's in a ring, it's going to be a carbohydrate. In nature, it's not always true, because clearly this is a steroid. This is not going to dissolve in water. This is non-water soluble, which is what makes it a lipid, and it's in rings. But I'm not going to trick you. Be aware that in real life outside of my classroom, there are things that are in rings that are not carbohydrates, but again, I'm not going to trick you with those, okay? So what do lipids actually do? They form your cell membranes, and they give you long-term energy storage. Okay. In addition to this, they also form steroids. Okay, so things like testosterone are actually lipids. But for our purposes, I'd like you to know that they're the principal component of your cell membrane, which we're going to talk about when we get down into cells, and they provide you with long-term energy storage. Okay, so if your body has any excess energy, it's going to store it in the form of these lipids. It's going to store it in the form of fat. Here is a detail that we are going to discuss later. It's just something that I want you to see, and that there are different types of these fat molecules. You have cis and trans fat molecules. You're also going to have saturated and unsaturated fat molecules, which we're going to discuss later on. It's just something I want to present to you so you can see it once before we get to it. But it won't be on the Chapter 2 exam. So again, lipids are not soluble in water. Okay, they have these long chains of carbons. Okay, if we go back, these long chains of carbons. Sometimes they're put together on the end of these phosphate groups, and then it's called a phospholipid. Sometimes they are steroids. I won't be showing you a picture of this, but I might ask you, hey, what kind of thing is a steroid? And you should also know that they make up your cell membranes, and they provide long-term energy storage. And for now, I think that's all I have to say about lipids.